Hello, humans. Hello, humans. Tuesday, April 14, 8:12 a.m. First, let me start by apologizing to Heinlein's ghost for borrowing his title, Time Enough for Love. Just a marvelous book if you've never read it. It's the end of the Future History series that he did. I dispute his concept of time travel, but nonetheless, the book is truly engaging. Anyway, a lot of things I want to talk about here today, and mostly about changes in our reality and in humanity and in you, and changes in the environment for you. So, as I said back on January 1, 26 and 27 are going to be this strange little pair of years. Things beginning in 26 will emerge in 27 and start being like distributed, spread out in the population. And this is going to occur all throughout these 2 years. There will be a lot of discussion in 2026 and then the manifestation in 2027. There will be new things invented from that point on, too. This is basically talking about new aspects of our reality that are coming into play because of the combinoric effect of all of these other previous things. So we're a snowball and in a giant field of snow on a huge mountain, and the further we roll, the bigger we get, and the faster we go. And that's this acceleration thing that we're getting into. However, juxtaposed against that are a bunch of things within our reality that are basically saying, hey, no hurry, no worry. You can chill. That there's basically time enough for love. And the reason that I'm saying this is because we've actually achieved laboratory and in some cases clinical trial results of methods to not only cease aging, to cease the process of our body's aging, to hold us as we are, but to actually reverse it, to be able to tell the individual cells to go back to your clean, pristine state without any of the diseases and all of this sort of thing. So just having this particular method dealing with aging also deals with so many diseases you can't imagine, right? Because you basically just take the cell and tell it to no longer participate in the process that you want stopped. So you can stop like systemic cancers, this sort of thing. This has been achieved at a laboratory level, and they're doing clinical trials on some part of it. So we're at the very beginning of this, right? I'm not trying to say it's there and manifesting. It is manifesting, but it's not distributed. It's not available to us all. But next year should see a very widespread introduction of this into the social order. The reason is that this particular approach, or these particular approaches to things, are ephemeral. They don't require machinery. So med beds are, not going to happen, right? I've always disputed the whole idea of med bed technology and the approach that it was good. The data never talked about, giant factories making basically huge tanning bed kind of things that you'd go lie in. The data always just talked about this coming into a sci-fi world where disease would be conquered, aging would be conquered, we'd have anti-gravity, zero-point energy, and all of these kind of things. And that's what I'm going to discuss today, all of these little markers that we've got that this is indeed maturing or initiating this year and next. And we're actually seeing some of those effects at the moment. So in this case, we can say the pudding is providing proof of itself. So we've got these guys that are doing the work on the body. And they're in the process of approaching one particular aspect of defeating aging, and they discuss and they get to, what was his name, Yamanaka. It's called the Yamanaka factors if you want to go and look it up. And we'll see it rolled out over this beginning in a very serious way next year. Although there are probably instances of it appearing here and there in the social order this year. These things have huge roll-on effects. Not only in the obvious thing of, reducing all of our medical costs and all of this kind of stuff. If you can just take a little 2-ounce drink and the stuff in there goes and talks to all your cells and converts them all back to, how you were doing when you were 20, something like that. You could probably choose to what age you would like to, not directly. You couldn't say, I want to be 23, but you'd have a drink that would provide conditions that would put you back to your prime as an adult. I'm certain that there's going to be longer, or there will be aging effects even with this, because of the effect on the mind, which I can get into in a minute. But so this is going to come on out. We won't have med beds. We won't have any of that. We probably will invent and provide for frequency controlling devices for rebuilding things like, a leg that gets chopped off, that sort of thing, right? And doing it in short order so that you don't have to spend, a year rebuilding that leg. You get it done fairly rapidly. Maybe they put you in some kind of, mind stasis or something and rebuild it with 3D printers like, what was that movie? Fifth Element. Anyway, but this is going to have profound implications for our social order and for the rest of your lives, perhaps, because you may. All right, so about, I want to say 1995 or something, somewhere in there, I came across the longevity community on various old forums of the internet, BBSs and the dial-up BBS networks and these kind of things. And the longevity guys had this saying in that period of time that arose. I don't know who to credit it to, but the saying was in 1990, say 95. That's when I saw it, so it might have existed earlier. But the saying was, if you're 50 now, endeavor to live to be 90, and then you'll be able to choose to live to be 300. Because they were postulating and projecting the amount of progress that would be made in the anti-aging battle, treating aging as a disease. And here we are, sure enough, they were correct. And so we're now in this cusp. We're in the cusp in these 2 years as this technology comes out and the changes start to ripple through the social order. It'll probably take 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 years for this to be available planet-wide. We have to deal with all the geopolitics and all this kind of stuff, but there will also be these combinoric effects that we're now really seeing push out into the social order. And so the fact that you're living longer gives you a different mindset, right? I'm 73. It's taken me many years to rebuild from I was 128, now I'm 186, and I'm doing some cutting at the moment to get a little bit more shredded, but I'm fit and healthy, but it's taken me about 8 years. Yes, I really would have liked this approach back then. It's been, a grueling 8 years. Nonetheless, I'm successful, and I feel good enough that I can say that, I can actually look out into the future a couple of decades. At least, right? And so here we are on the cusp of this. Now, even at 73, I recognize within my mind the impact of having lived 73 years and the changes, in terms of, let's call it my universal naivete, right? So your view of the universe and the paradigm in which you see that changes over time if you are an observant individual and you suffer many slings and arrows throughout your life. And it must be this way because of the nature of reaction and response in this universe. There has to be some level of change for when you impact events like that. Otherwise, what's the point, right? If you were not moved by it at all, there's no point for the universe to create it in the first place. Anyway, so that having been said, say that I could anticipate living 140 years, right? Well, without even these technologies that we know will be introduced over next year and the following, and refined and further refined and magnified and so on, let's just say I could do it to 140 years. Well, that would make me middle-aged at this point, right? I'd be the equivalent of, say, 40 if you were going to live to be 80. Now, I intend to live to 140 in a fit manner, so that my goal has always been to die in a young body at a very advanced age. And I think maybe I can achieve that now. And it's quite fascinating to watch all of the anticipated events and their effects emerge in this over this period of time. So anyway, so your mind changes in the process of aging, your viewpoint, independent, affected by your aging, but actually independent of what you do to your body over this part of the process. So I've repaired my body, but my mind still reflects and operates within this new point of view. And so this affects things, right? These mind shifts. So right now, again, just at 140 years, to say nothing of potentially 300 years. Well, okay, the social order is greatly going to change because you'll accumulate huge amounts of knowledge. I would expect lots of people to either go crazy because there's no rush, there's no worries, no hurries, and we can all get like Jamaican about things. And but under these circumstances, what's retirement? I already am bored with retirement. It's okay. I've got lots of little chores at the moment. I'm investigating baking with ancient grains and, putting up a greenhouse to grow quality food without the chemtrails on them and all of this kind of thing. And getting more and more prepared to deal with the changes that are manifesting. But without that central purpose of, quote, work, it's you have to find a different set of motivating ideals or prompts in your life. And I'm in the process of doing that. Now imagine that for 300 years. If you knew that you're going to live to the age 300 and you'd be fit and healthy in that entire time, well, that perspective changes a lot of how we do things. And under those circumstances, what's the point of retirement? Why be bored? For retirement as a concept really arose as a sop to the working class that were the serfs whose bodies were being burnt out by the demands of living in a world being colonized by the currency of the elite, right? And they control the system, and the system demands you work yourself to an early grave, and you're just basically hoping to reach some kind of a retirement age for then what? Well, so that you can sag into a couch for a couple of years before you expire. And especially these days where they're polluting the food and all of these kind of things to finish you off early, it's all because they don't have the money for Social Security. It was whittling down the population that they would have to pay out on because their currency scheme is a Ponzi scheme, and it's finite in its by design. It can't exist after a certain point, and they'll never have enough money to pay back the accumulated debt of 100 plus years. If you think about it, every dollar that's in the retirement system has debt attached to it. And so somebody at some point has to come up with real money to pay those debts. And you can only float the fake currency so long. So anyway, so our whole system will have to change as people live longer. And if the cost of living longer and repairing your body this way is relatively insignificant to the course of things. Maybe this drink cost you, I don't know, $10,000 in a particular year. Well, it's relatively trivial if that drink's going to provide you with another 30 or 40 or 50 years of productive life. So basically, the idea comes down to you're going to live a lot longer than you thought, and at some point your body will be more self-repairing than you can possibly imagine now. So what the fuck are you going to do with your time? Right? I know there will be people that will say, well, I'm going to get really good at fly fishing. And that's great, dude. Okay, have at it. But 20 years of fly fishing, it's going to get a little boring. And we're going to have cool stuff like, floating RVs and, off-world expeditions and shit, right? So it's an entirely different concept for our reality, and it has ramifications that we cannot even imagine now because of the combinoric effects. And but it truly is sci-fi world. So it's interesting. I'm gratified that I've lived long enough to see this, and I'm gratified that I'm at the position where I have recovered my body to perhaps, absent the damage caused by the surgery and the trashing my guts and stuff. Beyond that, I have been able to recover through being astute and now reasonably more successful. I've had this combinoric effect recently, like in the last year and a half, however long it's been available, in using AI to guide myself in the process. And it's been very successful, more than I would have anticipated, so much so that it's like, damn, I wish the AI had been available in 2022 when I started this with seriousness. In any event, though, so you get your body good, you got an expectation of another 70 years. Well, retirement I'm not going to be retired for 70 years. You could, for instance, plan things such that you wouldn't have to worry about money, so that you could retire, quote, early in your mid-60s and have accumulated passive income streams, this kind of thing, such that you don't actually have to go on out and bust your balls to make a living, right? And then you end up in the kind of the position I'm in relative to looking ahead, and that is, okay, now what? I got a marvelous woman. Heidi and I are working towards something, and even in the context of this new world in the future, maybe that's marriage. But what does marriage mean in a world where you could potentially be together, fit and healthy for a long time, right? So all of these things will be redefined. And so I'm very content that way. I've got my little nest here, doing my researches and this kind of thing, and have activities. And I'm still on the hunt for something to provide, quote, meaning at a personal level to my existence now, right? In any event, though, a lot of that's good. I won't go into that other stuff. But in any event, so that's one aspect of this, the combinoric aspect of the science hitting the social order and feeding back into the science, the distribution of it through the social order, and the effect at the individual level being combined on all of us in terms of how we would view our lives if we knew we had time and health. That's a big key. Health is much more of a key than money. You can have as much goddamn gold or Bitcoin as you want, but if your health is failing, it is meaningless. It has no meaning to you under those circumstances. So, health gives meaning to time. Now, okay, so on to some other combinoric stuff. So I've interacted with some people that are in the AI business. And these guys are, in my frame of reference, they're young kids, all right? So I think one of them's even like 28. And they've got a little endeavor. And this endeavor was very interestingly plotted out. What they did was to set up a series of computers and a little mini network between them, and they've got AI resident on those computers, right? And I won't go into the details, but we're talking something you could set up in your garage or, take over your living room if your wife would, or roommates would permit it. So it's not huge, not giant data center or anything. And they set up a wired local area network. On these machines are various different kinds of AI running various different kinds of models. So I won't get into the details, but it's like 3 different kinds of AI running on over 7 machines. It's running like 10 instances of different models. But what they were doing, and the reason they contacted me, was they were using AI to reinvent my WebBot system. And each of the AIs was examining the code that they were all contributing to, the concepts and everything, and then participating, and the AIs were basically fighting it out among themselves as to how to come up with such a system. And they've been a little bit successful, and that's why they contacted me. They wanted a validation or confirmation that they were on the right track, okay? And I provided them that. They are on a very decent track for their product, and hopefully they'll have a working instance of it. I'm not going to go into their target market or anything like that because of the potential competition there, but hopefully within this year they'll complete their research part of it and have it broadly available. The distribution aspect, as they conceive of it, will be relatively trivial. So it'd be like you'd download it as an app and you'd be able to have a WebBot running on your phone for you. And it would run in near real time, and I think it would be kind of cool. They asked me to, if they get to the point where they incorporate and go that route, they've asked me to participate on as an advisor in some capacity. And so I've agreed so far, right? Because it's interesting, and they have been somewhat successful, although they're not approaching it from the same route that I did, but they ended up at one of my intermediate steps that I had discovered when things got really interesting about 2005 and 2006. So here it is, AI competing and cooperating to complete a project that way. And so I think this is itself a very promising future looking technology that's emerging, making the combinoric aspect of the underlying technology iterative in terms of its own designs and stuff. Anyway, so this also brings up the idea of mind shifts, right? So if we have such things as a WebBot on your phone, this is going to change humanity in and of itself. Again, I'm not going to go into some of the particulars in terms of how they think it would be used, but I agree that if they could bring out the product and it delivered what their potential shows now, it would be quite exciting indeed at a very individual level. So getting back to Time Enough for Love, Robert Heinlein's book, there are aspects of what we're getting into that you'll read in that series in a very broad brush, right? Very broad stroke brush. He was predictive of some of the changes that humanity would go through. He applied it to an individual, his central character. Lazarus Long, I think. Yeah, Lazarus Long was his name. Excellent book. Read it a couple of times over the decades. Anyway, we're there. We're getting there now. And so the last thing I wanted to bring up here was exploration and how the use of AI to explore our reality and then combine it with feedback from that reality will alter the process of exploring it in real time as you're going along. So it's like that you would be able to have a metacognition to some degree operating within your AI model if you approach it correctly. And that's sort of what these guys are attempting to do. It won't make AI sentient. It's not quite like that. It'll just provide a layer of precog ability, so to speak, right? And then that brings us right back around to having that, the mind shifts that we're all going to have to go through. And again, brings back to the idea of, well, if you're as fit as you were at your peak and you find yourself to be 60 or 65, if you want to take a break, fine, but what's the point of, quote, retirement? You're just going to be bored as fuck. So anyway, I guess that's basically this aspect of it. Now, for 2020, the latter half of 2026, starting sometime in summer, we're going to have a very, and by summer, I'm actually, the data is referring to maybe the middle of May all the way through to the last week in September, right? But we're going to have some very energetic times. People will be quite distressed and disturbed and acting out all around the planet, doing all kinds of weird-ass shit. And there's going to be all kinds of pressures on the alien word, on contact, UFOs, and that sort of thing. There's going to be a lot of emotional pressures around those words, indicating something that's pending or emerging during that period of time. And we'll see how it goes, how it emerges there. But basically, it's one of those days, raining like fuck, the dogs are in and all dried off, and I thought, okay, this is a good time to take some time to talk about time and to say that we have time enough for love, and we can work on ourselves that way. And it's good. So take care, guys. No worries, no hurries.